All right. Welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, good to be back after Passover. Again, want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. So a few interesting things came in. We'll see if we get to both of them. First one is someone asked, is against the Torah. Is it against the Torah for a person to tell a person, for someone to tell someone else in the process of conversion? In other words, Jew or non-Jew? I don't know if it matters, but maybe we'll just say a Jew. Is a Jew allowed to tell someone who's in conversion they're obligated to do things of a normal Jew? That was the question. In other words, if it's a Jew telling him, you got obligations. You got obligations to keep. How come you're not keeping whatever obligation? Now, I had a case where somebody had an ultra-Orthodox living in a modern Orthodox community. And a Jew, modern Orthodox Jew, tells them, why are you keeping my machroni? Right? The afterwaters, right? After, let's say, you wash for bread, you have your meal, and then you wash again before you bench, so before you say grace after meals. Or I call them the afterwaters. Men and women really should be obligated in it, even if the reason really doesn't apply. Without really going into all that, someone makes a comment and says, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? You're not even Jewish yet. Right? You can tell the intention. The intention over here is what? You think you're more religious than me? Right? Why would you think you're more religious than me? You're not even Jewish yet, right? So the question is a Jew allowed to tell a non-Jew the process of conversion? Are they allowed to tell them, come on, how come you're not doing this? Or how come you're not doing that? How come you're not holding by your obligation that you're supposed to do for a normal Jew? That's the question. So my answer was, and now I'm going to flush it out a little bit. My answer was, I really should have said it depends. That's really the answer. Depends where the person is holding in the process. But I said I don't necessarily, my answer was, I don't see anything wrong with it. If a person is in the middle of conversion, whatever, maybe it doesn't matter what, where they're holding, in the process. So maybe we'll say, come on. How come you're not doing what you should be doing? Now, you can say this by a secular Jew who becomes religious. Right? And I was called out on that by somebody. They said, oh, you do this, you don't do that. And the answer really should have been, okay, you're right. I'm a work in progress. I'm not where I should be, but you're right, I'm inconsistent. I would agree. We all have certain level of inconsistency, right? We do things that we shouldn't do. Hopefully not on a regular basis, right? But at the same time, what do I have? Same thing. Person can say, how come you're not doing this? How come you're not doing that? So it's a legitimate thing to say. I would say, and the answer really is, depends where the person's holding the process. That's really the answer. But my answer was, well, I don't find a problem with it. Because they want to, they say, how come you're not doing this? Or how come you're not holding by this? Now, the person came back and said, well, a convert's not obligated. So the person being a goy or a non-Jew is no obligation. Isn't that true? Anybody listening now who's a non-Jew? Or even a non-Jew, a non-Jew who wants to be a Jew wannabe, let's say. Or a JIT, as I would say, Jew in training. So someone like that Do they have any obligation to keep any mitzvah for the sake of conversion, like a Jew would? No. They have no obligation. Person right now, I don't care where they're holding, in the rabbinic court process, whatever, they want to go to McDonald's today, not a problem. Not a problem. I wouldn't tell someone to do it, depending where they're holding, but not a problem. Want to go eat shrimp, lobster, not a problem. Now, I had this argument with my Rebbe once. And I asked him why, if someone's so close to conversion, why would you tell someone that? He said, "The Jewish yet?" I said, "No." "They go to the mikveh yet?" "No." They're not Jewish. They can do what they want in this case. I said, but someone so close to conversion, said the day before, minute before, 10 minutes before, they want to eat, all the garbage in the world, they're allowed to. No problem. So I said, you would tell someone to do that? So he said, are they Jewish? No. They go to the mikveh? No. They're not Jewish. He said, I'm speaking your language, English. What, you don't understand? You can tell them. So non-Jew has no obligations here. Doesn't matter where they're holding in the based-in process. Doesn't matter if they're ready to convert the next day. They want to go to the McDonald's, last fling, not a problem. Right? Have your last wishes here, last trade for wishes, no problem. Want to get a nice steak at Arby's? Arby's, I don't even know if it still exists. Whatever you want. Now, some people may do it, some people won't. It doesn't matter. Doesn't affect them the same way it does the Jew. Permitted. So what's the question? Why'd you tell somebody who's a JIT? You got obligations. You give a musar. You say, hey, how come you're doing this? Or how come you're doing that? You shouldn't be doing this. Right? So the person did, but they're not obligated. They have no obligation. So if they have no obligation, you have no right to say anything to them. Right? That was the question. That was the question. So my answer would be, it depends where they're holding. Depends where they're holding. If they're at the beginning of the process, they don't really know what they're doing. Or they've been in the process for a while, they still don't know what they're doing. For a lot of things. They make a lot of mistakes left and right. Okay? So what are you going to get musar for? They're not holding where they need to be holding. If they've been learning a long time, this, that, and they are holding somewhere in the world, they know what's right, what's wrong in different ways. And they're not going the way they should. Let's say that's the way it looks. Why shouldn't you say something? Basin certainly will say something. They go to Basin, they say you're not up to snuff. You're not doing what you need to do. They'll say, get out of here. What do we need you for? You want to be the real deal? Be the real deal. You got to be consistent. Doesn't mean you're perfect. Doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. But again, it depends where. Someone who knows better, then I would say something. But again, it's going to depend where they're holding. It's not really a clear-cut answer here, right? My answer would be, it depends where they're holding. Someone knows something clearly is forbidden, and they still do it because they want to do it, or whatever. They should be called out for it. Someone recently asked me, it wasn't an issue by them, but they asked, should I buy the book Sefer Gilgulim? What's the book Sefer Gilgulim? It's a book on Kabbalah. Now basically, Gilgulim means reincarnated soul. So you go through Jewish history from the very beginning into the prophets and who's reincarnated of who, what's going on behind the scenes. One of my rabbis once told me, is very much steeped in Kabbalah, said, you have to have a lot of fear of heaven to go through such a thing. if they have a lot of fear of heaven to go through such a thing. So obviously I don't have it. I haven't learned Kabbalah. At least not yet. But I said straight out, no. Again, people want to run before they know how to walk. And they want to walk before they learn how to crawl. First, we got to take it step by step. I mean, it was a pure intention over here. Person said, I want to do it, I'm going to do it anyway. Okay. Person wants to do that, you don't need to ask me, you're going to do it anyway. So someone who wants to grow, wants to do the right thing. Right? So, okay. But if someone's going the wrong direction, and who says the person shouldn't necessarily say something? The question is where they're holding. If they're not holding anywhere, I get it. Then you wouldn't say anything. Of course you wouldn't say anything. Because they're taking baby steps. They're at the very beginning. They're just getting their feet wet, learning the alphabet. So of course they're going to be a train wreck. No offense. They're going to make mistakes, all kind of mistakes. All over the place. Makes perfect sense. Why are you going to get Musar? They're not holding anywhere in the world. I mean, they're starting. It's very good. Tremendous thing. Came out of idolatry. They want to learn, very good. Are they going to jump 5 levels in the first day? No. Second day? No. 5 months later, we'll have a discussion where they're holding. 5 months later, a year later. But to rebuke somebody when they're holding nowhere, there's no point to that. Right? So the answer is it depends where they're holding. That's the answer. Right? But the question comes back. But they're not obligated. Who cares they're not obligated? What do I care they're not obligated? Doesn't matter. What matters is where they're holding. You're right. Even if they're not obligated, they don't have to keep anything. So why bother? Okay? Then what do you call yourself? So you say Coffman's Law. I'm a JIT. I'm a Jew in training. I'm in the process. Oh, you're in the process? So why are you doing this? Oh, you don't have a right to say that. I can do what I want. Right? I can do what I want. Right? I'm told by the Noahide laws. Very good. You can't rebuke me. You can't say anything. I'm not obligated. Well, why'd you say you're a Jew in training then? Just say you're a non-Jew. You're a Noahide. So fine. But if a person says in the process of conversion, they're already making a statement. And that statement is, I want to keep more things. And I want to do more. Very good. But that depends where they're holding. And if they're holding at the beginning, I wouldn't say anything. Right? If they're holding somewhere else, they know better. That might be a different issue, which really gets into the second question. Right? I'll get into the second question in a second. Someone asks, same applies to kosher food, right? JIT, if they buy and they cook kosher foods, it becomes non-kosher. If they cook it, right? You're right. If all the ingredients are kosher, has the best rabbinic supervision, for them it's okay. For a Jew can't eat it. That a Jew can't eat, right? If a secular Jew did the same thing, they bought all kosher food, right? Best rabbinic supervision. They cook it up from beginning to end, right? The Jew doesn't turn on the fire, doesn't flip the burger, doesn't help in the process. So a Jew can't eat it, right? It's a rabbinical decree, right? In a certain way we'll call it, as Coffman would say, call it a little bit of spiritual cooties here, right? But that's what it is. We don't allow it. For non-Jews, we don't allow it because we don't have contact with non-Jews. We don't want to eat with them, right? So that's going to lead to other things. That's going to lead to other things. Mentioned this this week. Forget which week I'm in already. This week, I spoke on Tanakh Talk on that. Can Jews be friends with non-Jews? That whole discussion. So we mentioned this. Mentioned this one part. So if a non, let's just say again, if a non-Jew cooks it, in a juice pot. It's all kosher, not a problem. The non-Jew cooks it from beginning to end. Beginning to end, he cooks it. Right? A Jew can't eat it. Now, if the Jew turns on the stove, hot enough to boil whatever, to cook whatever it is, or he stirs it up as does something in the process to help it cook, fine. That's not a problem. Secular Jew, same thing. And the secular Jew desecrates Shabbos. Right? Even all the ingredients are kosher utensils, not a problem. You can't eat it. Jew can't eat it. Right? That is true. That is definitely true. Again, the rabbinic prohibition. The rabbinic prohibition. Because again, for Jews, you intermingle with non-Jews, what do you think it's going to lead to? Assimilation in general. That's why I mentioned, Jews in business or works for someone else, the secular Jews there, non-Jews there, you got to be careful. You got to be careful interaction. You don't want to get too close. You want to have boundaries. You want to have a certain level of distance. Makes sense. Because otherwise, it's going to lead to assimilation. Assimilation and intermarriage. You got to be very, very strong. Very, very strong in the workplace. But let's get to the second question. Right? These two really go hand in hand. Because we're talking about, somebody asked, so my answer was, it depends where they're holding. Right now, somebody knows better. Somebody knows better. What do? Yeah, let's say they live near a community of Chabad, so they go to Chabad. Very good. Maybe sometimes they also go to a conservative synagogue. Not good. Maybe sometimes they go to a Messianic congregation. Certainly not good. Right? So I asked, how in the world can you go to a Messianic congregation? This person should be holding somewhere. They should be holding somewhere in the world. Spiritually. Right? I've been learning for a while. For a number of years. Going to Chabad, I understand. They live in the sticks, boondocks, boonies, as we would say in Boston. Live in the sticks. Makes sense. Yeah, there's also reforms, also conservatives, also whatever out there. So some people will say it's better than nothing. No, Coffman wouldn't say that. Nothing's better. Why? Because it's all false, it's all heresy. All these so-called Jewish movements. But the sad walk into a Messianic congregation. Okay, now you know better. You know it's not true. But what's the rationale? This is what I want to point out. And this is why I'm going to call it out. What's the rationale? The rationale is, I'm going to quote it, that they'd say it's mostly Orthodox Jewish with some false Messiah beliefs. There's a major, major problem with this statement. You're right. Maybe there are Orthodox beliefs. Maybe in some ways they're more religious than us. Maybe. With some false Messiah beliefs. Now, what do you mean, false Messiah? What in the world is he talking about, false Messiah? The two don't go hand in hand. How can you have Orthodox beliefs with believing someone is a false prophet? It's a Torah prohibition. False prophet deserves to be killed. So it's an oxymoron. Mostly Orthodox Jewish tradition, I grant that, probably true, with false Messiah beliefs. So what is that? It's false. You say the Shema, you read the Torah, let's say it's kosher. Torah scroll, let's say they're Jews, whatever. It's not just some false Messiah belief. The whole thing is false. Right? I'll give an example. I really don't have to, but I'll give an example. If I take a banana What's the blessing over a banana? Brei Pri Adama. Grows from the ground, looks like a tree. Okay, doesn't give fruit all year, whatever. Doesn't have the status of a tree. So it's Brei Pri Adama. Now, can I say this banana is an apple? What's the blessing over an apple? Brei Pri Eitz. So you can argue, is a banana a tree, is it a plant, whatever. But a banana is not an apple. And a pen is not a cell phone. They're different. Totally different. They want to tell me their Orthodox beliefs with a false Messiah. It's like water and oil. The two don't mix. My interview on Tanakh Talk, when I was first interviewed about what I do, one of the questions was, can you be a believing, Jew and believe in JC? I said, no. Why not? Because it's like, my answer was like going to the mikveh with a dead rat, with a dead animal. You touch the dead animal, you're in the mikveh. You still pure? No. You're impure, but the mikveh makes you pure. Too bad. You're standing in the mikveh with a dead animal. Doesn't help. Totally doesn't help. So here it's mostly Orthodox Jewish with some false Messiah beliefs. How does that help me? How does that help me in my spiritual growth? It's false. With a capital F. It's false. There's no way around it. They read the Torah twice a week and on Shabbos. Okay. They say the Shema, they do this, they read in Hebrew, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Maybe they do things like that. Maybe they do things like the, Orthodox Jews. But they believe in a false God. So it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what they say. Doesn't matter how they do it. Doesn't matter how quote unquote Orthodox it is. False. Now, if you don't believe in that Messiah, how in the world can you step in a place? So if a person has a certain level of knowledge, and they've been learning and doing other things for a number of years, that's a non-entity, that's a non-starter. That you call out. That I would call out what I'm doing now. But it goes further. There are worse things. Yeah, being an outright Christian is worse. So being a Christian with Jewish trappings, that makes it better? On a scale of 1 to 10, Christianity is number 10. We want to call this an 8.5? When you put it in the scale, there are worse. It's more of a gateway towards Orthodox Judaism of secular beliefs and Christianity than the other way. That I could hear. That I probably wouldn't disagree with. Because most people coming out of Christianity, where do they go first? Messianics. Usually. Not always. Usually. Some people won't go anything that even smells like Christianity. They'll start being a Noahide. Some maybe go Reform, conservative, until they see the light, till they see what the real truth is. So that I would agree, it may be somewhat of a stepping stone. But some people get stuck there. It takes them a while to get out because they don't see the false. They don't see it. But I would agree, it might be a gateway. But if the person already knows better, and the person already knows it's false, how in the world could you go there? Let's say a number of years later, and you feel more comfortable there. Who cares? The whole thing is false. If it's a person just starting out, I get it. That would make sense. But if you already got a couple years more under your belt of learning, it's false and all that, then I, me, myself, and I, all three of us got the civil complex. All three of us would say, what are you doing? You want to be in this process. Why are you even dabbling in that? That's like taking 8 steps backwards. So it goes a little bit further. That meeting's talking about how to interact with members that went to Orthodox Judaism, bring them back, I don't know what. And eventually they part ways. Very good. So that I don't have an issue with. But if you already know better, my point is, if you already know better, you can't step in a place like that. But sure not, doesn't make sense. Right now, what does this bring up? What is it going to conjure up? Now we mentioned Chabad. It's more like the Messianic Chabad people with the Rebbe. Now that's a whole thing. That is a whole thing. Why? Because, first of all, not everyone in Chabad believes the Rebbe is the Messiah. There are people that do. Might be a significant minority. Certainly not a majority. At least not yet. So some people hold, some rabbinical authorities hold nothing to talk about that believe the Rebbe is the Messiah, then that's idolatry. That clearly is idolatry. There are many rabbinical authorities who hold such a thing. My Rebbe holds up that way. He said they're just crazy in the mind. It's just a crazy idea. Crazy idea. He doesn't hold their messianic. Now, other rabbinic authorities would disagree. A friend of mine once told me he's got a soft spot, maybe. Then he might have a soft spot for Chabad somewhere, not exactly sure. But definitely, he doesn't believe that. He doesn't believe the Rebbe is the Messiah. I mean, he doesn't believe that that's called idolatry. Now again, others would disagree. But I would not say that Messianic Judaism and Chabad are the same. Now, a person may say, well, if they believe the Rebbe is the Messiah, then isn't that like being a Messianic Christian? Right? Or sorry, being a Messianic Jew? The only thing is you're changing the Rebbe with JC. Wouldn't that be the same thing? Right? I'm not so sure that's the same thing. First of all, they're holding by Judaism, not Christianity. Right? In general. Again, others would say that's clearly the same thing. They're believing in a false God. Okay? So if you take that side, then there's no real difference. There is no real difference. I'm not necessarily learning that it's the exact same thing. Right? And the reason is because they're already holding by Judaism. They're already holding 99%, 100%. God spoke to Moshe Mount Sinai. God, passed it down, oral law, all the mitzvahs, no issues. They don't have any issues. A lot of things they do on their own, not like, the rest of the Orthodox community. Well, 99% we all agree on. But they sort of keep to themselves, in different ways. But even with that, is that the same thing as Christianity? The similarity is for those that believe that the Rebbe is the Messiah. That's a similarity. False prophet. Right? That would be idolatry. That would be similar. Except we know what Christianity is. We know what it stood for. We know all the problems with it. Chabad's not that. Certainly not that. They're not draping around Jewish customs and believing in a false Messiah. They're draping around Jewish customs, believing Judaism's true. Okay, they have this idea about the Rebbe being the Messiah. But that's not the same thing as Christianity. Similar in certain ways. But I wouldn't compare it to that. Because the whole point of being a Messianic is trying to convince people, to really, to be quote unquote, a Jew in all the trimmings. Yeah, but you're forgetting one major point. You're not really a Jew over here. They really want you to be a Christian with a bunch of Jewish trappings. That's how they get you. That's what Chabad's doing. They believe from the get-go 100% what the truth is. So I want to tell me they believe the Rebbe is the Messiah. So it could be they're crazy. Some of them. And that would be idolatry. Right? I hear that similarity. I don't hear the similarity in the way they're doing. Chabad's not dressing up Judaism in any other way. They're not trying to convince you to be a Christian. Certainly not. They want you to keep all the mitzvahs. They have this thing about the Rebbe being the Messiah. Okay, I understand why it's a problem. Why it's a serious problem. But they're not misrepresenting what Torah is. Not the way the Christians are. Certainly not. They're not hiding behind anything. Totally not. Right? So if that's the case, it's not a similarity to what the Messianics do. Totally not. The only similarity is his belief in a fall, in that the Rebbe is the Messiah. And that's similar to being idolatry. That I hear. But to say it's like the same thing, not exactly. Not exactly. So now a person's stuck. They go to this Messianic place, let's say. So they're convinced and they know the Messiah hasn't come. They know that the Messiah has not been revealed. So they avoid saying it. So when the subject comes up, they say, well, it doesn't really matter. It varies from person to person. You avoid the subject. Okay, well, now let's break this down. Let's break this down. This is someone, my assumption is, they know better. They know JC's not the Messiah. They know it's false. They came out of Christianity, the whole 9 yards. They're going to end up converting. Right? Let's say. They're going to end up converting. Now, even if they end up converting, what are they doing over here? They're going to say, I don't mention it. I don't believe the Messiah has come, etc. Doesn't really come up in conversation. Right? Doesn't really come up in conversation. And all this. And I wouldn't bring it up anyway. Because there are more people that are vocal. Okay, my question again is, why are you dabbling in such a thing? That would be my question. That's why I'm calling it up. Because someone's been in the process for a while. Learned here, learn this, learn that, going to synagogue, blah, blah, blah. Had other issues why they can't convert. Fine. But why are you taking 8 steps backwards now? If you tell me you did it before, you don't do it, you don't do it now, it's one thing. But if you say, listen, I feel more comfortable there, it's really not all so bad. Why? Because it's really, most of it's Orthodox Judaism, except with a little bit of Jason. We can't have it both ways. It's not Orthodox Judaism. It's nothing. I don't care what they do. Read from the Torah, read in Hebrew, they do this. They can do everything exactly the way we do it. When it comes to prayer, other things. What do I care? They're holding on to a fish. Dead fish. When you hold on to a dead fish, it's dead. So how do you say it? It's mostly Orthodox Jewish stuff with, a little bit of trimming from JC. No, they're misrepresenting. One of my personal pet peeves. I don't like people that lie. Can't stand people that lie. It's a lie. It's a travesty of a mockery of Hashem. That's what it is. They're trying to convince you to be a Christian. They're not saying, keep the Jewish faith, be Jewish. No, they're saying, we want you to believe in this false Messiah. That's their goal. Oh, they don't say it outright. It's kind of sneaky. So we're going to call them out. Tell them, this is what we do. We have Orthodox belief, but we believe in JC. Tell them straight out. Don't do it in a backwards way, in a sneaky way, in order to draw them in. Tell them. Be honest what you're doing. But you're not, because you want to bring them in. You want to draw them in. You want to get, whatever. So my question would be, and this is how we got into all this, is, this person's not Jewish. But idolatry is forbidden. Idolatry is forbidden. Right? So they can't believe in this. They can't go to this. Now, if they know idolatry is forbidden, and they know even there's Orthodox belief and ritual and all that, and they're believing, in their whatever, they're speaking about JC, even if they don't believe in them. So what are they doing there? That I would call out. Because that is problematic. If you're telling me, like this person says, more of a stepping stone, okay? That I would hear. That I would hear. And eventually it takes, some people it takes years to get out of this. And someone took them, I don't know, they're there 15 years. 20 years. Till they finally realized, what was going on. But that's where a lot of people start after they come out of Christianity. So I get it. That's a stepping stone. So if you're older and you came out of Christianity, a person doesn't know what to do, and that's what they find, that's where they go. It's still wrong. Definitely still wrong. And some people get stuck into it for a very long time. They get out of it very good. It's a stepping stone, okay. Then they hit other things. Eventually, if they're searching for the truth, they'll get there. If they really want truth, right? The Gemara says, we mentioned many times, you want to go in the right direction, God will help you. You want to go in the wrong direction, God will not stop you. But if you're already holding somewhere, Christianity is false, then you can't go to such a place. Then Coffman would say, what are you doing? What in the world are you doing? You want to convert, stick to Chabad. If that's all there's there. Forget going reform, forget going conservative, you're not going to get anything there. Waste of time. Better stay at home. They get messed up with what they do. Then you have to be reprogrammed. Spoke to someone recently, they went through one of these programs, and they're telling them all kinds of things what to do. Things that go 100% against Torah. Right? Things that are 100% false. And they get sucked in. Now, whatever. Coming out of it, they know it's not true, and all that. So good. So better not to go. Better not to waste your time. Yeah, but I'm isolated. So what? You want the absolute truth. You don't want to be, spinning your wheels, wasting time. And that's all it is, a waste of time. Because all the things they're going to tell you, 99%, if not 100%, are all false. And they all go against what God wants. So if you know it's false, and had someone going through a reform conversion, already paid for it, had, number of classes left to finish, knows it's not true. He knows it's false, but he's going to continue anyway. He's going to get the piece of paper. So I asked him, because I don't understand. It's not true. Ideologically why it's not true. But I've already paid for it. I couldn't get this out of the person's head. But I already paid for it. I said so. Take a loss. Say you gave that money to charity, a bad charity. Take it as a loss. We all have losses in life, right? Things that happen, car breaks down, other things happen, you got to get teeth fixed. We take losses. Everybody has losses in life to a certain extent. So say you gave bad charity, you won't get credit for giving charity. Fine. So you lost the money. Person couldn't get out of their mind. Now, it could be they have doubts. Maybe they think it is true. Whatever the case is. But that's what they kept coming back with. Like talking to a brick. But I already paid for it. But you don't believe in the paper that's written on. But I already paid for it. It was like a bad Freddy Krueger movie, going back and forth in the dream. And then you get lost. Like, didn't I go through this before? I went through it again. I was somewhere else. I was in another dimension. But they couldn't get it out of their mind. Totally couldn't get out of their mind. So what ended up happening? They probably got their degree. Probably got this piece of paper and they're happy. Okay. I would have said, forget it. What do you need it for? But I have to go through coursework. Who says? It's heresy. I have to go through the coursework. Someone just asked me by a Noahide. Can a Noahide, get a high school diploma, a GED, as it's known in the States? Or maybe it was a degree. I think it was actually not a GED. I think it was a degree, actually. Let me just see. It was a GED. It was a GED. Right? But the question was, is equivalent to a high school diploma. Right? So the question was, is the Noahide allowed to do that? What's the problem? There are classes that are going to be heretical. Might teach evolution, other things. True, it is a problem. But if you believe strong, you're doing it online, you know what the real truth is, the non-Jew less problematic. I would say the less problematic. The other one was all right. But, for a Jew, you got major issue here. Major issue. And if you're in the process and you're holding somewhere in the world, you can't do this. Right? That's the point. And it's better to do nothing. Better, again, people isolated. They want to meet other people. I get it. Social interaction makes perfect sense. But if you know it's a travesty of a mockery of Hashem, then what's the point? They say, well, I know that, but since I'm not Jewish, whatever. Okay. Yeah, a non-Jew can do what they want to do. Not going to say no, right? But if you know it's false, 100% it's false, then I would say stick it out till you're able to move. I might take a couple of years, might take longer. It can be lonely. Certainly can. But a person's only going to get aggravated. Because if they know the truth, they see what other people say, what other people do, how much fun socially is it going to be? You just forget all this stuff. I mean, it's hard. I'm not going to say no, it's hard. To be isolated is very hard. Right? That there's no question. So again, the answer is depends where they're holding. In this case, if the person's holding somewhere in the world and they know better, you can't walk into a Messianic place. I don't care how Orthodox it looks. It's Messianic the wrong way. Now, what about walking into a Chabad house, praying there if the rabbi there believes, and the congregants there believe that the Rebbe is the Messiah? So again, depends how you look at it. If you hold that's very idolatry, then you can't pray there either. If you hold it's just a crazy idea, my Rebbe holds, then you could pray there. Some people would say if they kill, if they shecht meat, they kill a cow properly, you can't eat the meat. There are some rabbis very, very strong and say that, if this person is a messianic for the Rebbe saying he's the Messiah, you can't eat the meat that he shechted. Can't answer Amen to his blessing. I mean, whatever, it's very strong. Very, very strong. And there are many rabbis hold that. Again, my Rebbe doesn't hold that, and I'm not exactly sure why. He definitely holds it's a crazy idea, but he doesn't believe it's idolatry. Others disagree. But again, on that side where, many disagree, then you couldn't pray there. And you can't pray there. Because the place is idolatry, essentially. Right? I would say it's still better than going to a Messianic place. It's really Christian. But, that's what I'm saying about it. They're really the same. They're just believing in different people. But it's not exactly the same. It's similar in some ways, but it's not. Right? It is. Anyway, a bunch of questions here. Somebody asks, Mashiach ben Yosef is supposed to die in battle. The whole question about the Messiah of Yosef. There is a whole question if he's going to die or not. There's a difference of opinion. The Talmud speaks about whether he's going to die or not. Now, even if he dies, right? It doesn't really matter how he dies. He's going to die in battle, or he's going to die because he had a stroke, or whatever the case is. I don't know if that's going to make that much of a difference. The problem is he's dead. And the mistake is, the Gemara that says, if someone would come back to life, be the Messiah. It's not talking about person coming back to life. It's talking about someone who has certain character traits. If you have the character trait like, Prophet Daniel, or something like that. Not that, he's dead, he comes back to life. Right? The whole question, you understand how you understand that piece of Talmud over there. But with that being said, then it doesn't matter. Right? First of all, we're not, even if you're telling me it's the Messiah ben Yosef, we're talking about the Messiah ben David. We're talking about the Messiah of David over here. Messiah ben Yosef, the whole question if he dies or not. That's the whole question. But the Messiah of David doesn't die. Right? So then the Talmud says, but if it would be someone who died, it'd be like this or like that. These characters. Not that he came back from the dead. But in character traits like somebody like this or like that. The Messiah of Yosef could die. True. There's a difference of opinion, but he could die. No matter how he does. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about the Rebbe being the Messiah of Yosef. Talking about the Messiah of David. They came from base David. Yeah. Let me see what else is here. Somebody asked here, Jew in training, right? My JIT. A Jew in training who dresses Jewish, right? They have yarmulke, they have tzitzis, etc. Other times, people try and convert them. Try and convince them. If a person has proper knowledge of being a former Christian, should we try and explain why they're wrong if you want to? This is a video someone put out, whatever, I didn't see it. I just scrolled through it about someone who confronted a missionary. Okay? You want to? If they confront you. If they confront you, it's one thing. You want to answer them, show them where they're wrong. Nothing wrong with that. Definitely nothing wrong with it. I would tell you it's probably a waste of time. Why is it a waste of time? Because they're not going to be interested in what you have to say. They're just going to quote other things. Say, oh, it's a good question. And then they quote something else. Oh, that's a good question. Right? Same thing happened when I was in South America, in Chile. I had these Mormons, not the brightest guys in the world, and I had a whole bunch of questions, didn't have answers. They kept asking other things. So after the third time, I said, listen, you guys got to get answers. If you don't get answers, I don't have any time. I don't have any obligation to listen. I said, go to your priest, whoever you go to, and bring me some answers. That was the end of that. So if a person has the knowledge and you want to answer them, you can. It's not forbidden. But again, debating these people, they're programmed. They're not programmed to think. They're just given certain answers, whatever. When you answer them and they don't have what to answer, they go on to something else. So if a person says, should I do it? I think it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. You're not going to convince them. They're not interested. They're trying to convince you. If they're seriously interested in truth, yeah, maybe. But that's not my job. My job's not to convince them. If they want to in general, they say, okay, I have this knowledge. I'm going to wipe the floor with this guy. Okay. I remember I went to a surprise party for my father. Didn't know I was coming in. And a relative whose father-in-law is not a pastor. He's I don't exactly know what to call him. It's a reverend. I don't know exactly what I don't really believe in JC. I'm not exactly sure. Any case, I just read Ravari Kaplan's You Take the Messiah, I'll Take God, or You Take JC, I'll Take God, whatever it is, about how to answer a missionary. So, add something to drink. This guy's like, oh, I'm so-and-so's father-in-law, oh, it's a pleasure to meet you. And he's like, oh, I hear you're very pious. I'm like, oh, Reverend. And I was all excited. I was all excited to wipe the floor with this guy. And this was many, many years ago. Many, many years ago. And then before I even had a chance, I think God saved me here. Even before I had a chance to open my mouth, someone I hadn't seen in a long time, had pulled me over or whatever, and like that was it. I never go back to the Reverend. But if someone wants to answer, they can. The question is it worthwhile to do so? Again, I would say it's probably not worthwhile. Probably a waste of time. If someone says, I have the knowledge, let me do it. I'm not gonna say you can't do it. I don't think you're gonna get much out of it. I think it's a waste of time. I definitely think so. I think it's a waste of time. Because they're not out. They don't want to be convinced. They're not going to hear one word you're going to say. Oh, but it really means this. Yeah, but that's not what the word means. Oh, that's what they say in oral law. Oh, you want to know about oral law? No. We got our own law. But it's a waste of time. Person wants to do it. Okay. Someone asks, is that every generation there's one representation? There's one representation of the Messiah. If he dies, he can't be the Messiah, right? Where do we know that from? What's the source? The source is by Bar Kokhba, or as he was known in the Gemara Bar Ziva. When they rebelled against the Romans, Rabbi Akiva was convinced Bar Kokhba was the Messiah. What happened to Bar Kokhba? He died. He was killed. So Rabbi Akiva said, I made a mistake. So the Rambam there learns that from Rabbi Akiva, you cannot be the Messiah and die. You can't die. The Messiah of Joseph can die. The Messiah of David cannot die. So Rabbi Akiva said, I made a mistake. He really thought it was the Messiah. Once he saw he died, he said he can't be the Messiah. Right? So that is true. If you die, you can't be the true Messiah. But they're going to claim that this piece of Talmud says even someone from the dead can be the Messiah. But again, it's a question how you learn that piece of Gemara then. Right? Rashi on the spot says someone has character traits like this person from the dead or that person from the dead. That great prophet or this one. Fine. That doesn't mean he's coming back. That's not what it means. They learn it differently. Okay. So now the question is, do all of Chabad believe the Rebbe is the Messiah? No. So I would say years ago, it was a small minority. I don't think it's such a small minority now. I don't think it's half. I'm not sure. I wouldn't say it's half. I think there are a lot that do believe he's the Messiah, but I don't think it's half. But I don't know. There could be a significant population of Chabad that does believe. Does believe that. It's hard to understand. There are people singing and dancing when the Rebbe died. It was very strange. Very, very strange. So, what's the percentage? I can't say. It used to be a much smaller percentage. I don't think it's as small today. I definitely don't think it's as small today. Someone asks, what's an Erev Tavshilin? An Erev Tavshilin is if a festival comes out on Shabbos, like Passover, the last days of Passover, started Wednesday night to Thursday night to Friday night. Right? Oh, sorry, it started Thursday night. Sorry, Thursday night to Friday night. So if the festival falls out Thursday night, that means it's going to go into Shabbos. If it goes into Shabbos, you can't cook from a festival, even though you're allowed to cook in general if you have a pre-existing flame. You are allowed to cook. Problem is, I can't prepare from a festival to a festival and a festival to Shabbos or from a festival to every day. That I'm not allowed to do. The rabbi said, okay, you're not allowed to do that. So what do? You make an Erev Tavshilin right before the festival comes in. What do? I take an egg, hard-boiled egg, take a piece of matzah or bread, right? And I make a blessing that this allows me to cook from a festival to Shabbos. Because otherwise I want to prepare on Friday for Shabbos. How am I allowed to do that? I can't prepare from a festival to Shabbos. But I'm allowed to cook. You're right. Technically, you're allowed to cook. That's true. But I can't cook for the next day. I cannot prepare from Shabbos to a festival. That's forbidden. Sorry, from a festival to Shabbos. That I'm not allowed to do. Oh, but the rabbi said if I have an Erev Tavshilin and I make that on Thursday night, I make it Thursday before the sun goes down, and I make the blessing, very good. Then I'm allowed to cook on Friday. Then I'm allowed to make my soup, make my fish, whatever. I'm allowed to make that on Friday before Sunday. Otherwise, I wouldn't be allowed to cook from a festival to Shabbos. That's what an Erev Tavshilin is. Someone asks, anyway, a whole thing here I'm not going to get into about when the Messiah is supposed to come, when the period, the epic of the Messiah, the Messianic era, when's it really supposed to start? Yeah, so there's a lot spoken about that. There is a lot spoken about that. The Talmud says in Sota, there are 15 signs we're living in the Messianic era. 15 signs. So it's clear we're living in the Messianic era. Now, does that mean that the Messiah has to come within 6,000 years, which means we have a couple hundred years left? So whether we deserve it or not, the Messiah is going to come. Question is, when is that going to be? When do these things really start to happen? Now, a lot of things have happened, certainly over time. And it looks like the Messiah is right around the corner. Right. But the pinpoint to say exactly when, that's why the Rambam says you should never try and figure it out. Because if you try and figure it out according to the verses in the prophets, there's a contradiction left and right in the prophets, and therefore we should never try and figure it out, because if a person tries to figure it out and say, oh, this is when the Messiah is supposed to come, he didn't come, so there's no God, there's no nothing, I don't have to believe in anything. That's why the Rambam says you shouldn't try and figure it out. So in the end, in the end, whatever these sources are, I would say, you know what? Who cares? You're gonna say, what do you mean? Is it really going to start? The process really start 20 years ago, this, that, by 9/11, or who knows what? And all these things don't really matter. We're in the Messianic era. I don't think anyone disagrees. And seemingly with things heating up in the world, and after 9/11, right, et cetera, it seems like, things are moving pretty quick. Now, again, that means something's going to happen tomorrow, the next day, a week, a month. The world's a powder keg, just ready to explode. According to everybody, I don't think that's an issue. Question is where, when, and how. So it's going to be within the last, next 200 years. I'm not making any predictions, but again, there's a lot going on in the world, even before what happened in Russia, in Ukraine, because you got significant, Muslim minorities all over Europe. That's a powder keg waiting to happen. A number of years ago, the Muslims shut down France for like 3 weeks in the summer. 3 weeks. France is not some African, sub-Saharan, whatever, middle of nowhere, middle of nothing. We're not talking about some third world backwards country, whatever you want to say about the French. And they shut down the place for 3 weeks. Is that a scenario that could explode all over and be Edom against Yishmael, as the Malbim says in Zechariah chapter 14? Absolutely. Doesn't mean it's going to be. Anybody's guess. Anybody's guess. There's a medrash that says if there's going to be a war, to end all wars, the war of Gog and Magog, it's going to start with the king of Paras. Where's Paras? Iran. Could it happen that way? Sure. Here today, news going on all over. They're saying, or Russia's saying, or whoever's saying it, that, this could be World War III. Could be the beginning of World War III. Could be. You're talking about a major world power here. Nuclear weapons. Who knows what's going to be? Right? There's no doubt we're living in the Messianic era. That's what we have to take home. That's it. How it's going to be, whatever. Forget about calculation. Forget about what the Zohar says. Forget about all this stuff. Doesn't matter. You want to look into it. You want this, that. Okay. To me, it's a waste of time. Concentrate on other things, more practical. Yeah, it is interesting. But again, no one disagrees. We're living in a Messianic era. I don't think there's, here you're going to say, because, it started a certain year, they're going to say, why Judaism isn't divine, whatever. I'm not wasting my time. I'm not wasting my time looking through it, because it doesn't matter. Let them say what they want. It doesn't matter. Because nobody knows. Even according to Zohar and how you learn it and this and that, could be many things that could have happened that didn't. There are things that should have happened, thousands of years ago. And certain person could have been the Messiah and he wasn't. Did something wrong and, whatever. A lot of things could have happened. But we are living the Messianic era. I don't think there's any question. When and how and where and this and that. Okay, different issue. Someone asked, proper to pray for a deceased rabbi for others' needs. That's idolatry. You're not allowed to pray to the person. In other words, you go to the what do you call it? The gravesite of a righteous person. You're not praying to them. That's idolatry. It's through their merit, but you're not praying to them. You can't pray to them. You can pray in their merit. That's one thing. Praying to them, that's idolatry. Someone asks, what is Mishnah Torah? That is the epic work of the Rambam. The law of Jewish law for the Rambam that organized it. Blessings and kashrus and marriage, divorce, laws of damages. That's what the Mishnah Torah is. We also learn the Mishnah Torah is that's the book of Deuteronomy. It's called the Mishnah Torah because Mishnah means twice. It's like a lot of the mitzvahs given over a second time. Right, but if you're asking about a book, what's the Mishnah Torah? That's the Rambam's book. It's also known as the Yad HaChazaka. Right, but that's the Mishnah Torah. Someone asked, stones on the wall, on the Wailing Wall are huge. How'd they move them? That's a good question. That is a good question. That's a good question. So that I don't have a good answer for. How did they move them? I think some of them moved absolutely miraculously. But according to nature, how they do it, I'm not sure. Someone just points out, I just want to mention that somebody divides Chabad into three groups: regulars, some that are messianics, and some who's an Elokist. What is an Elokist? Some, I don't know, subset, I guess, of these messianics that they don't think the Rebbe is Messiah, but they think it's, that they think he's like God, incarnate, which that's a major problem. That would be idolatry according to everybody, right? If they say he's like God, creates worlds. Okay, that's going way beyond. But that's a different level on that. Someone asked why the ultra Orthodox Jews look down upon. Why they look down upon? It's only by secular Jews because, obviously, they think we're judging them. And we think, it's our way or the highway, which is pretty true. So they think they're being judged and they have that spark of a Jew, so they feel bad. And so what are they going to do? They're going to make fun of us. I got plenty of people, I get them on the phone and all they do is make fun. Oh, if I breathe on your food, does it mean it's not kosher? Like, comments like that. And the answer is no. It just means that food, has bad breath on it. Like, what, why are they making fun? Or they say, someone lived in a Jewish neighborhood, a really Jewish neighborhood, ultra-Orthodox neighborhood, and after synagogue on Saturday, see, throngs of people in black hats and houses. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to say. Right? But they're saying it in a condescending way. They're saying, oh, what a terrible thing. See you black. Why are they saying that? To make fun. Right? Some people will make fun, and they'll say, oh, we're not doing anything for the world. People that are sitting and learning. Even though it's like 0.25%, if that. Right? But I think it's that spark inside them says, oh, we're not good enough. I'm not saying anything. You want to do what you want to do? Fine. Realize there's the right way and the wrong way. Right? I'm not saying that. I mean, that's true. But I'm not going to tell, they're already going to be on the defense. Now, I've seen this many times. People would make comments, all kinds of comments. I didn't say anything. I don't like the way you dress. I'm like, did I just open my mouth? Did you just hear me say, you look like a bum, a beach bum in flip-flops, with the beer belly hanging out? Like, I didn't say anything. I don't like the way you dress. Well, what's the matter with the way I dress? The only difference is I wear a suit, I wear a suit and a hat, and tzitzis, and, we look pretty much the same otherwise. And my comment was, well, if I sat in your roof, I played the guitar, I shaved my head like a mohawk, and I smoke weed every night, would that bother you? And the guy's thinking, he's thinking. And I'm like, come on, if you have to think about it, it's a problem. Well, people get offended because we're supposed to represent what the Torah says. And if we don't, they hammer us more. Why? They say we're lazy, even if we're very productive. They say, we're bloodsuckers, and we take people's money, and we're slumlords. Okay, it still might be true, but what about if they're poor? They make all kinds of comments, opposite things that don't matter. That they say the same thing. They'll say, oh, the Jews, Jews are rich, they do this, they do that, and they do that thing. What about in the place where they're poor? Oh, they're poor, they do this, they suck off the government thing. Because we're held to a higher standard no matter what. At least as Orthodox Jews. We're held to a higher pedestal. Because we represent the Torah, so we have to be squeaky clean. Absolutely squeaky clean. And if not, we're held accountable. But secular Jew, I just saw there was a conservative rabbi just got caught, I think in Cleveland, somewhere in Cleveland, whatever, something very egregious. They dissed himself, they fired him, whatever. Good. Made him look bad. Imagine it was an Orthodox rabbi. Be all over the papers, all over the internet. Why? Because, dog bites man's not a story. Man bites dog, that's a story. So secular, someone secular does such a thing, and I'm going to call a conservative rabbi secular because that's what they are pretty much. So he does something wrong. Okay. All right. He's being called out now. Fine. But it's not the same if an Orthodox Jew did it because he's held to a much higher pedestal. Much higher pedestal. He should be. Why should he be? Because he's supposed to represent what the Torah says. He's supposed to keep what the Torah says. And if he doesn't, fine. Reform rabbis do this or conservative rabbis do that, or whatever the case is. That'll make news. This will make huge news. 10 times more. Because we're supposed to, A, we're supposed to know better. B, we're supposed to be better. Be better, i.e., keep what God says and do it. So then the question is, if JIT is converting with ultra-Orthodox, respond to mean comments. So it depends. I love that answer. Depends. If they're confronting you, you have a right to defend yourself. And let's say this person did something wrong. Let's say we know for sure person did something wrong. You don't have to condone it. You say, you're right, this person did something wrong. But when they make a statement against all ultra-Orthodox Jews, that's called racism. And you can tell them. Is that if I were to say, all blacks this, all Chinese people that, all Russians this, that, and the other thing, what would you say? You're a racist. You're totally you said about Orthodox Jews, that's not racism. That's okay. A barrel of wine should be well. One said, what the secular media here in Israel calls ultra-Orthodox Jews, if they would change the word ultra-Orthodox Jew to Arab, there would have been outrage years ago. Years ago. We're cockroaches, we're this, we're, bloodsuckers, all kinds of things. All kinds of things. You never get away with that. If you mention the word Arab, come on. Mention black, Chinese, fill in the blank. Absolute racism. Absolute. So I'm going to sit there and change their mind. They're not interested. Secular media is not interested. I did call someone on it once. More than once. Someone said, there was a funeral during Corona. And they had, in New York, and this great rabbi passed away, and they had permission from the police department. And they had this huge thing, and then they reneged on the last second. Or whatever, the whole thing. The whole thing. Someone said, I can't believe they did that, and how could they do that? And whatever, someone making comment. I said, well, I hope you would never do that. I said, I didn't, and we're careful. I'm not saying everybody is, and they should be, but more, what about secular people at a Corona party? When everything was at the height, and they had a whole Corona party. You didn't say anything about that, did you? Oh, I said that was terrible. I made the comment and said, when you say ultra-Orthodox Jews, this and that, you're including me, my kids, etc. Now, if we're not like that, that's making a racist statement, isn't it? Oh, well, no. You just made a racist statement. You included me in it. If you would have mentioned blacks, it'd been all over you. All over you. You mentioned ultra-Orthodox Jews were free game. Right? Obviously, it's wrong. But what's the point? Why is it happening, John? Because we're not doing what we're supposed to do. If we would do what we're supposed to do, you're right. Esav hates Yaakov. And it's always going to be anti-Semitism, whatever. But if we're not doing what we're supposed to do, it's worse. We have to be put on a higher pedestal, okay? So we have to be squeaky clean. And if not, we pay a serious price. We definitely pay a serious price. So we have to be careful. You know, when I'm in public, whatever I'm doing, try and be as careful as possible. I don't want to give these people one iota of a word to say anything. Anything. You know, and, you know, sometimes I've heard people mumble things under their breath. Nasty. What are you going to do? You're going to convince them? Waste of time. Right? But you can point it out. You definitely, you know, you can call them out on it and say, hey, that's, you know, that's a racist statement to say because you're including everybody and not everyone does that. Now, again, if someone did something wrong and it's true they did it, you don't have to condone, you know, you can't condone the action. If it's true, it's wrong. Totally wrong. And they should be called out. But what does that have to do with me? You know, your people are this and your people. I didn't do that. I don't do that. So what gives you the right to say that? Oh, you're okay. No, that's being racist. You're not allowed to say that. Again, I've been in certain situations. I confronted it. So you don't have a right to say such a thing. They backed off. They did back off eventually. But first thing they said is, that's not what I meant. I said, well, you know, you include me in that also. They didn't like that. Well, you know what I meant. Yeah, I know exactly what you meant, and it's racist. Because I made the comment. I said, if I would say this about secular Jews, I said, if I were to say all secular Jews smell, you would probably find that offensive, wouldn't you? Oh, but you say Orthodox Jews that wear all these, you know, wear so many layers, and it's so hot. You're right. You're right. So you say, oh, you smell because, I mean, come on. So they, you know, they'll say things in a very sarcastic way, but you can't say anything back against them. God forbid. God forbid. And we have to be better. Someone makes a comment, I just, you know, I won't even bother. But again, I have a big mouth, so like, someone made a comment once, you know, and I rammed it back in the throat straight, 2 seconds. I said, oh, so basically you're saying this. Oh, we can agree to disagree. No, you just made, don't be so sensitive. Not a question of being sensitive. You just said X, Y, Z. That's offensive. Oh, come on, I was just kidding. Or they say whatever. People make statements. People are not open-minded. Call us closed-minded. We are closed-minded. But see, they have a right to say whatever they want. You can't say anything back. Well, you know, we have to try and break the stereotype. That's what we have to do. And how do you break the stereotype? Don't give them anything what to say. And if they say something not desecration of God's name, you're out. Let's say me, I'm out. It's 85 degrees, like, you know, 32 degrees Celsius. You know, it's hot like you can't imagine. You know, and I'm out there, suit, jacket. It's hot. And someone says, I can't, how could you wear that? And it's so hot and, you know, you're perspiring, right? You're not wearing any clothes. You're also perspiring. No. So what? You think I'm going to wear this every day, every last thing? I'm not going to change. Never going to take a shower. You know, there are people, let's say, you know, the train Jerusalem, you know, people would walk on during Corona, they see ultra-Orthodox Jews walk straight off. Why? You're the ones perpetuating Corona. Well, we live in crowded areas, you know, have a lot of people in the family, you know, a lot of people in the building. So you imagine it spreads by us quicker. True? Doesn't mean we're not as careful. Maybe there are people that are not careful. How many secular people out there not careful with Corona? When, even at the height? Lots. You want to finger us? Yeah, statistics are higher in our community for a number of reasons. Because we don't care. There are plenty of people that don't care. That's a problem. I'm not going to say it's a problem. Not a problem. It's a problem. How can you not care about someone else's well-being? I don't believe it. All right, we're not going to go into Corona, but how can you not care about personal hygiene? One of my personal pet peeves. How can a person not do that? And they're like an absolute slob. So people will say something. They should. It is a disgrace. But in the bigger scheme of things, a lot of what they say is total racism. 100%. So you want to get in a fight, you want to argue. To me, it depends who's saying it. I've called people out on it and they agree. Called other people, they just didn't want to discuss it. They say, oh, you're too sensitive. Oh, you're this. Oh, you make a real backhanded comment. And a relative once made a backhanded comment, shut him down 3 seconds. That was it. Over the years, never said boo. Because he knew if he makes a backhanded comment, I'm going to slam him. You want to get slammed? I don't think so. At least not by me. Right? And my mouth just goes in a permissible way. I'm not going to take that. Why should I take that? So you're like this and you're like that. Who says you have to take it? And, again, is it worthwhile not to say something, not get at you? Yeah. They're not going to change it anyway. But you make a point. So make a point. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. I'm going to stop there. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, back on track at 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Coffman or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimcoffman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN@gmail.com, which I'm going to go